Today's posts start off completely normal, but within a few paragraphs, everything spirals out of control. Grab a snack, sit back, and let's get into today's Reddit stories. First off, am I the asshole for uninviting my estranged father from my wedding after he demanded to walk me down the aisle? I, 28F, am getting married in 3 weeks to my fiancé James, 30M. We've been together for 5 years and he's genuinely the best thing that's ever happened to me. The wedding planning has been mostly smooth until 2 months ago when my father decided to reappear in my life like a ghost. I thought I'd finally exercised. Some background. My dad, David, 56M, left when I was 10. I don't mean he left and stayed involved. I mean he left. He moved 3 states away with his girlfriend, now wife, started a whole new family, and basically pretended his first family didn't exist. Growing up, I'd get a birthday card maybe every other year, always the generic message and a $20 bill inside, like that made up for his absence. No phone calls on Christmas, no visits, no interest in my life whatsoever. My mom, Margaret, 54F, raised me completely on her own. She worked 2 jobs just to keep us afloat, attended every one of my school events, taught me to drive, helped me through my first heartbreak, paid for my college as much as she could. She was there for everything. My mom is the reason I am the person today, and she's incredibly involved in the wedding planning. We've been having the time of our lives, inviting all the guests and picking out flowers and tasting cakes. I haven't spoken to my father in about 8 years. The last time was at college graduation, which he showed up to unannounced. My aunt gave him details without asking me. He stayed for 20 minutes, took some photos, told me he was proud, and then left before reception. I remember watching him walk away and feeling absolutely nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just nothing. I'd grieved the father I'd never had years ago. Imagine my shock when I get a phone call 2 months ago from a number I don't recognize. It's my dad. He somehow got a new number, again. I suspect my aunt, and he's calling to tell me he heard I'm getting married. Congratulations, he said. He'd love to be there. In fact, he's already cleared his schedule for the date. I was stunned. I didn't even know how to respond. I mumbled something like, thanks for calling, and got off the phone as quickly as possible. I immediately called James, who was furious on my behalf. He met my dad exactly once and has 0 patience for him. Here's where it gets messy. My dad didn't want to just attend. He wanted to walk me down the aisle. He called me back 3 days later and said, I've been thinking about it, and I'd be honored to give you away. It's a father's right, and after all, we probably should have met up before the wedding so it doesn't feel awkward that day. A father's right? I almost laughed. This man has no rights where I'm concerned. He gave up those when he chose a new family over me for 18 years. I told him I needed time to think about it, but honestly, I knew my answer. The problem was my mom. When I told her about the calls, she got this look on her face, the one she gets when she's about to say something she knows I won't like. Maybe you should consider it, she said. He's still your father, and it might be nice to have a moment, you know? For closure. I was floored. My mom, of all people, was advocating for this man? The same man who left her to raise a child alone while he played happy time with someone else? She explained she just didn't want me to have regrets, that weddings are about family, and that maybe this could be a chance to heal old wounds. She also, and this was what really got to me, said the extended family would talk if my dad wasn't there, and it would look bad and cause drama. I felt so betrayed. It was like she was prioritizing everyone else's comfort over my feelings. James, bless him, was completely on my side. He said, babe, it's your wedding. Not your mom's, not your dad's, not your aunt's. If you don't want him here, he doesn't get to be there. Period. I'll walk you down the aisle myself if that's what you want. Or you can walk alone. Or your mom can do it. Whatever makes you happy. But the pressure kept mounting. My aunt called, my grandmother called, even my dad's sister, who I barely know, sent me a Facebook message about the importance of forgiveness and being the bigger person. Everyone had opinions about what I should do with my wedding. Finally, I agreed to meet my dad for coffee. I thought maybe if I explained my feelings in person, he'd understand. Maybe he'd even apologize for being absent and that we could have some kind of honest conversation. That meeting was 3 weeks ago, and it's the reason I'm writing this post. My dad showed up 15 minutes late, ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, and spent the first 10 minutes showing me photos of his other kids. And then he started talking about the wedding. So I'm thinking I'll wear a navy suit to match the groomsmen, he said. And we should probably do a father-daughter dance. Have you picked a song out? I was thinking Butterfly Kisses, or maybe... I cut him off. Dad, I need to be honest with you. I'm not sure I want you to walk me down the aisle. His face changed immediately. What do you mean? I'm your father. You haven't been my father in any meaningful way since I was 10 years old, I said, just trying to keep my voice steady. You left. You started a new family. You missed everything. My first day of high school, my prom, my college move-in day, even every birthday, every holiday. You don't get to just show up and claim some ceremonial role like you've been here all along. He got defensive immediately, said I was being dramatic and holding grudges, that he'd done his best and I should be grateful for that he wants to be involved now, that lots of kids don't have fathers who care enough to show up. I asked him if he could name one significant thing about my life, my job, my hobbies, how James and I met, anything. He couldn't. He literally could not tell me a single real thing about who I am as a person. That's not fair, he said. You never reached out to me either. The phone works both ways. That's when I lost it. I told him that I was his child when he left, that it was his job to maintain the relationship, not mine, that I didn't know him anything, least of all a starring role in my wedding. I told him he wasn't invited anymore, not to walk me down the aisle, not to attend at all. I left cash for my coffee on the table and walked out. My mom was devastated when I told her. She cried and said I was being too harsh, that I would regret this decision, that family's family no matter what. My aunt sent me a long text about how I'm breaking an old man's heart and that I'm being cruel and selfish. Even some of my cousins have weighed in, saying I'm making the wedding all about drama and that it should be about love and unity. But here's the thing. I don't feel like I'm the one making the drama. He made it about drama by showing up 8 years and demanding a role he hasn't earned. I'm just protecting my peace and what's supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. James is still 100% supportive, and he told me he's proud of me for setting boundaries, that anyone who can't respect my decision doesn't need to be at the wedding either. His family has been amazing too. His mom even offered to have security at the venue in case my dad tries to show up anyways. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't doubting myself. The guilt is eating at me. I'm wondering if I'm being too unforgiving, if I'm letting old hurt prevent something that could be meaningful. If I'm going to look back 20 years and regret not giving him the chance. At the same time, I think about walking down the aisle and I feel physically sick. I think about the photos we take, the father-daughter dance everyone would expect, the toast he'd probably want to give. All of it feels like a lie, like I'd be performing a relationship that never existed just to make other people comfortable. My mom is still pushing for me to reconsider. She called yesterday and said, he's trying. Doesn't that count for something? But I don't think showing up after 18 years of absence counts as trying. I think it's the bare minimum. And even then, he couldn't manage to be humble or apologetic about it. So Reddit, am I the asshole for uninviting my estranged father from my wedding after he demanded to walk me down the aisle? Should I be more forgiving? Am I going to regret this? I'm getting married in 3 weeks and I'm so tired about feeling guilty and protecting my own boundaries. Edit. Wow, I did not expect this to blow up. I'm trying to read all the comments. Thank you to everyone sharing their own stories. It helps to know I'm not alone in this. To answer some common questions. Yes, my mom is invited and will be at the wedding. Despite this disagreement, she's been my rock my entire life and I love her deeply. I think she's just conflict averse and wants everyone to get along. No, my dad has not apologized or acknowledged his absence in any meaningful way. The closest he said was things were complicated back then. James is really as supportive as I described. I'm very lucky. I'm having my mom walk me down the aisle. She's the one that raised me, so it feels right. Thank you for all the perspective. I'm reading every comment. Now getting into the second story. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my struggling brother live with me rent-free after I inherited most of our father's estate? Using a throwaway account because my family is all over social media and I need unbiased opinions. I, 35M, recently lost my father, Robert, to cancer. He was 68 and been sick for about a year and a half. It was devastating. My dad and I were extremely close. He was my mentor, my friend, and honestly one of the best people I've ever known. Losing him is the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. My dad was a successful small business owner. He owned a regional chain of hardware stores that he built from the ground up after 40 years. He was incredibly smart with his money, lived modestly despite his success, and invested well. When he passed, he left behind a substantial estate. I'm talking about $2.3 million in total assets, including the business, real estate, investments, and savings. The will was read 3 weeks ago, and this is where things went sideways. My father named me as the executor of his estate and the primary beneficiary. I inherited the business, the family home, and his investment portfolio, as well as his bulk of liquid assets. In total, I'm looking at roughly $1.8 million after taxes and estate costs. My younger brother, Tyler, also mentioned in the will, he received $100,000 cash, my dad's truck, and some personal items, including my dad's watch collection. My older sister, Jennifer, received $150,000 in cash and some jewelry that belonged to our late mother. Now, before everyone jumps down my throat about the disparity, there are reasons for this distribution that were stated in my father's will. Tyler had been struggling with financial responsibility his entire adult life. He's not a bad person, but he makes terrible decisions with money. He's racked up credit card debt, taken out payday loans, bought cars he can't afford, and moved apartments 6 times in the last 4 years because he keeps breaking leases or getting evicted for late rent. My dad bailed him out at least a dozen times over the years. We're probably talking about $60,000 in loans that were never repaid. My dad's will actually included a letter explaining his decisions. He wrote that he loved all his children equally, but he was leaving me with the business because I dedicated years to learning it and the skills to continue his legacy. He wrote he was giving Tyler and Jennifer smaller amounts because he wanted to help them, but he didn't want to enable destructive patterns. He specifically said he hoped Tyler would use his inheritance wisely to get a solid financial footing. The letter also said he was making me executor because he trusted my judgment and knew I'd handle everything fairly and responsibly. This part has been weighing on me heavily. This is where the conflict starts. Tyler's $100,000 inheritance hits his account about 2 weeks ago. I was honestly hopeful he'd use it to pay off his debts and maybe put a down payment on a modest condo or something. Instead, he brought a brand new Dodge Charger, paid $40,000 cash for it, posted pictures all over Instagram with captions about "Dad wanted me to enjoy life" and "You only live once." I was stunned. I didn't say anything because it's his money and his choice, but I was disappointed. That's almost half his inheritance gone immediately on a depreciating asset when he has massive debt. Then, 4 days ago, Tyler called me, said he needed to talk about something important. We met up at a coffee shop near my house. He looked stressed. He told me his lease is up at the end of the month and his landlord is raising rent by $400. He can't afford it. He's been working the same retail management job he's had for 3 years. And between car payments, yes, he financed additional features on top of cash he put down, his credit card minimums, and other bills, he's completely tapped out. I was wondering if I could stay with you for a while, just to get up back on my feet, maybe a year or so. I wouldn't pay rent, obviously, since I'm broke, but I'd help around the house and stuff. I was floored. He'd just blown $48,000 on a car 2 weeks ago. Now he wanted to live with me rent-free for a year? I asked him about the car. Why didn't he buy something modest and save the rest for living expenses? He got defensive immediately. Said the car was an investment in happiness, that he'd been depressed about Dad's death and needed something to lift his spirits. That I wouldn't understand because I got everything and wouldn't have to worry about money anymore. I tried to stay calm. I told him I was understanding that he was grieving. We all were. But buying a $48,000 car when you're in debt and about to be homeless isn't a sound decision. I couldn't let him live with me rent-free just because I didn't think it would actually help him in the long run. What do you mean it wouldn't help me? I literally need a place to live, Marcus. I explained Dad had given him a substantial gift. $100,000 is life-changing money if used wisely, but he'd already burned through half of it in 2 weeks. If I let him live rent-free, he'd have no incentive to budget, to address his spending habits, or build financial discipline. I'd just be enabling the same patterns Dad had been enabling for years. I offered alternatives instead. I said I'd help him find a financial advisor who could help him budget and manage what's left of his inheritance. I'd co-sign a modest apartment if he needed help through qualifying. I'd give him resources for credit counseling to help with his debt. I'd even offer him more hours working at the hardware store if he needed to pick up extra work. But I told him I wouldn't let him live with me rent-free. If he wanted to stay with me, he'd need to contribute either $800 a month or help with specific household expenses. He was furious. He told me I was being cold and heartless, that he was struggling, that Dad would be ashamed of him for not helping family, that I was sitting on almost $2 million and couldn't spare a bedroom for my own brother. I held firm. I told him I loved him and wanted him to succeed, but free housing wasn't going to solve his actual problems. He stormed out of the coffee shop. That was 4 days ago, and since then, my phone has been blowing up. Jennifer called me the next day absolutely livid. She said that Tyler called her crying, that he was going to end up homeless, that I was being cruel and selfish. She said that the person who had inherited the most, I had a responsibility to help out my siblings when they're struggling, that family takes care of family. I tried to explain my reasoning, but she wasn't hearing it. She said I was hiding behind excuses, and that if I really loved Tyler, I'd help him without conditions. Then, my aunt, Dad's sister, called. Then 2 of my cousins, all saying basically the same thing, that I'm being greedy, that I should be grateful for my inheritance and share it with Tyler, that Dad would want me to help. The worst call was from my mom. My parents divorced when I was 12, but she stayed close with all of us. She was gentler than the others, but she still said she was disappointed in my decision. She said that Tyler is struggling and scared, and that sometimes love means helping people even when they've made mistakes. You have so much now, Marcus. Would it really hurt you to let him stay for free? You have that big house all to yourself. That one got to me because my mom's opinion really matters to me. She's not a manipulative person. She was genuinely coming from a place of concern for Tyler. But here's my perspective, and I need to know if I'm being an asshole. Tyler is 29 years old. He's not a kid. He was giving a massive financial gift, more money than most people see in years, and he immediately made an irresponsible choice. If I let him live rent-free, what's his motivation to change? He'll blow through the rest of his inheritance, continue his spending habits, and in a year when I ask him to leave, he'll be in the exact same position or worse. I watched my dad bail out Tyler over and over again. Every time Tyler would promise to do better, to be more responsible, to pay Dad back, it never happened. Dad would give him money for rent, and Tyler would spend it on something else, and then need rent money again the next month. It was a cycle that never ended, and it caused Dad so much stress. In his letter, Dad said he specifically hoped that Tyler would use his inheritance to build a stable foundation. Buying a Challenger and then asking for free housing is the opposite of that. I also think there's something else going on my family isn't acknowledging. Resentment about the inheritance situation. Jennifer made a comment during our argument about how convenient it is that I get the business and the house while Tyler gets pocket change. I understand that disparity feels unfair from the outside, but I didn't write the will. I didn't manipulate Dad or scheme to get more. Dad made his choices based on who he thought could handle what. He knew Tyler's history. He knew that giving Tyler equal access to millions or business would likely end in disaster. And honestly, I've earned my inheritance in ways that go beyond just being Dad's son. I worked at the hardware store through high school and college. I got a business degree specifically to help Dad expand, and I spent the last 8 years working 50 or 60-hour weeks learning every aspect of the operation. I've sacrificed other career opportunities to build this with him. Jennifer moved out of state and visits twice a year. Tyler has never shown any interest in the family business. I'm not saying Tyler doesn't deserve anything. He got $100,000. That's a huge gift. But the idea that I should now subsidize his lifestyle because I inherited more feels wrong to me. At the same time, I'm lying awake at night wondering if I'm being too harsh. Tyler is my brother. He is struggling, and I do have the means to help him without it really affecting me financially. Would letting him stay rent-free for a year really be that terrible? Maybe he'd get his act together with the stability. But then I think about the car, about the pattern of behavior, and about how Dad's enabling never actually helped Tyler build skills or discipline. My girlfriend, 32F, we've been together for 3 years, is completely on my side. She says I'm being smart and that my family is trying to guilt trip me into fixing Tyler's problems. but she didn't grow up with siblings, so I'm not fully sure she gets the family dynamics. My best friends think I should let Tyler stay for 3 to 6 months max with clear conditions and a written agreement, just to avoid the family drama. But that feels like a compromise that doesn't actually address the core issue. I'm also worried about what this means for my relationship with my family going forward. Jennifer has already said she's reconsidering coming to Thanksgiving. My mom sounds hurt every time we talk. Tyler has blocked me on everything. I keep asking myself, am I a responsible executor of Dad's wishes and trying to help Tyler in a way that might actually work? Or am I being a selfish asshole who's using tough love as an excuse to hoard my inheritance while my brother suffers? Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my struggling brother live with me rent-free after I inherited most of our father's estate? Should I reconsider? Am I gonna regret drawing this line? Edit, since people are asking, yes, Tyler still has about $52,000 left from his inheritance. The Challenger has $680 a month payment because he financed the extended warranty and some upgrades. I'm not married, no kids, and yes, I have a 4-bedroom house, so space isn't the issue. Jennifer got less than Tyler because she's financially stable with a good career. Dad's explained in the letter that he was giving on needs and responsibility. I've already offered to help Tyler in multiple concrete ways. He specifically wants free housing with no strings attached. My girlfriend lives with me part-time but keeps her own apartment. Thanks for all the perspectives. This is really hard. The next story on my list is, am I the asshole for reporting my best friend to HR after they took credit for my work and destroyed our friendship? Throwaway because people at work definitely use Reddit and the situation has become the office gossip. I, 31F, work as a senior marketing strategic at a mid-sized tech company. I've been here for 6 years and genuinely loved my job, until about 3 months ago when everything imploded in the most painful way. The person at the center of this is Casey, 29F, who is my best friend. I don't mean work friend or casual lunch buddy, I mean actual best friend. We met on Casey's first day 4 years ago when I was assigned to train her. We clicked immediately. Same sense of humor, same taste in music, same frustration with corporate BS. Within months, we were inseparable both in and out of the office. We'd grab drinks after work at least twice a week. We went to concerts together. I was at Casey's apartment the night I got dumped by my long-term partner, holding them while they cried. Casey helped me move into my new place last year and spent an entire weekend painting my living room with me. We had inside jokes. We texted constantly. We knew everything about each other's lives. I trusted Casey completely. They were the person I'd vent to about difficult clients, the person I'd brainstorm with when I was stuck on a project, the person who actually made the job fun. Looking back, I see how naive that was. Here's the background on our work dynamic. Casey and I were on the same team but worked on different accounts most of the time. I handled the larger, more complex clients, the ones with bigger budgets and higher stakes. Casey typically worked on smaller accounts or assisted on the bigger projects. This wasn't a reflection of skill necessarily, I just had more seniority and experiments. Our manager, Lisa, 45F, oversaw both of us, but honestly wasn't very hands-on. She'd check in for status updates and attend final presentations, but she didn't really dig in day-to-day work. As long as deliverables were in on time and clients were happy, she didn't ask too many questions. About 8 months ago, I'd started noticing small things that felt off. I'd mentioned an idea to Casey during one of our brainstorming sessions. Something I was developing for one of her clients, and then a week later, I'd hear Casey pitching a very similar concept at a team meeting. The first few times, I'd brush it off. We talked about it and worked constantly. Ideas overlap. It happens. But then it started happening more frequently. I'd share a strategy I was working on, and Casey would present a near-identical approach to Lisa, framing it as her own thinking. Then when I'd bring it up casually, hey, that's really similar to what we talked about last week, Casey would laugh it off and say something like, great minds think alike, or you must have inspired me without realizing it. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to think it was innocent. Then, about 5 months ago, I was working on a major campaign for our biggest client, a regional healthcare network worth about $400,000 annually to our company. This was a huge deal, a complete rebrand including new messaging, visual identity, digital strategy, the works. I'd been developing this pitch for 3 months, working nights and weekends to get it right. I'd talked to Casey extensively because that's what we did. We workshopped ideas together. I'd shown them in my mood boards, my messaging frameworks, my competitive analysis. Casey had given feedback and suggestions, which I appreciated and incorporated. I thought we were collaborating and friends. The pitch was scheduled for Friday. On Wednesday, I got violently sick, like I couldn't leave the bathroom sick. Food poisoning from some questionable sushi. I called out Thursday too because I was still completely wiped out. Lisa called me Thursday afternoon. Hey Alex, I know you're sick, but the client moved the meeting up to tomorrow morning. They have a board meeting next week and need to make a decision. Could you possibly make it in? I was feeling awful, but this was my biggest client. I said I'd try. I spent Thursday night refining in my presentation deck, making sure everything was perfect despite feeling like death. Friday morning, I dragged myself to the office at 8 a.m. for the 9 a.m. meeting. I looked terrible, pale, exhausted, probably slightly green. But I was there with my presentation loaded and ready. I walked into the conference room at 8:50 a.m. and Casey was already there with the client presenting my campaign. I stood in the doorway completely frozen, watching Casey click through the slides that I created. My messaging, my visual concepts, my strategy. Casey was presenting it all as her own work, talking about the approach I developed and my vision for the rebrand. The client was nodding along, clearly impressed. Lisa was in there too, smiling and proud. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Casey saw me in the doorway and her face went white for just a second before recovering. Oh, Alex, you made it. I was just getting started on your behalf because I thought you might not make it in. That was a lie. Casey wasn't presenting on my behalf. There was no mention of my name anywhere on the presentation. No, Alex developed this or Alex's strategy. Casey was taking full credit. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't cause a scene in front of the client, so I smiled weakly and said, I'm here now. I can take over. Casey looked panicked for a while and then said, actually, I'm already warmed up and we're running short on time. Why don't you just add anything I missed at the end? I sat down feeling completely powerless. I watched my best friend present my 3 months of work as their own. Every slide, every talking point, every strategic recommendation. All mine, all credited to Casey. The client loved it. They approved the campaign on the spot, which almost never happens. Lisa was thrilled. She kept saying things like, Casey, this is exceptional work, and I'm so impressed with your strategic thinking. Casey beamed and accepted every compliment. After the meeting, Casey pulled me aside. Alex, I'm so sorry. I was just trying to help you since you were sick. I'll make sure Lisa knows you contributed. But Casey never did. Over the next week, I waited for Casey to set the record straight. Instead, I watched Casey get praised in her own team meetings, get congratulated by other departments, get featured in the company newsletter as the lead strategist for the campaign. I finally confronted Casey directly. We went to our usual bar after work. I said, you need to tell Lisa that was my campaign, that you presented my work as yours. Casey got defensive immediately. I was helping you out. You were sick. Someone had to present it. I know the material since we talked about it so much. You told the client it was your vision, your approach. You didn't mention my name once. I was going to, but there wasn't a good moment. And honestly, Alex, we collaborated on it. You're acting like I stole something when we worked on it together. We didn't collaborate. I asked for your feedback as a friend. That doesn't make it your project. Casey's expression hardened. You know what? Maybe if you weren't so possessive over your work, we could actually function as a team. I'm tired of you treating me like I'm just your assistant. I was stunned. That wasn't what was happening, and Casey knew it. We left the bar angry at each other. This was our first real fight in 4 years of friendship. I thought maybe we'd cool off and work it out. Instead, things got worse. Over the next 2 months, I'd started noticing a pattern I was too blind to see before. I went back through my emails and Slack messages and realized Casey had been systematically taking credit for my ideas for at least 6 months. There was a social media strategy I developed for a nonprofit client. Casey had presented it at a near identical approach to a different client and got praised for innovative thinking. There was the content calendar framework I'd created and shared with Casey for feedback. Casey turned it into a template and started using it with all our clients, telling Lisa they'd developed a new system for content planning. There were at least a dozen smaller instances where I'd shared work with something like Casey, and Casey had repackaged it as her own work. I felt so stupid. I'd been handling my best friend's ammunition to advance her career at my expense, all because I trusted her completely. The breaking point came 6 weeks ago. I was working on a pitch for a potential new client, a major retail chain that would be worth over $600,000 annually if we landed them. This was career-defining stuff. I've been working on this pitch for about 2 months, developing comprehensive digital transformation strategy. I'd made the mistake of talking to Casey about it. Old habits die hard, and despite everything, part of me still wanted to believe our friendship could be salvaged. Casey had apologized for the healthcare campaign situation, saying they'd handled it poorly and would do better about giving credit. So I'd shared some of my ideas for the next retail pitch. Not everything, but enough. The pitch was scheduled for next Tuesday. On Monday afternoon, I was in the bathroom when I overheard 2 people from a business developing team talking in the hallway. Did you see Casey's pitch to the retail client? It's incredible. Lisa's already talking about promoting her lead strategist if we land it. My blood went cold. I went straight back to my desk and checked the calendar. The retail pitch was still on my calendar for Tuesday at 2 p.m., but when I checked the master calendar, there was a second meeting scheduled. Same client, same day, 10 a.m. Presenter, Casey. Casey had somehow gotten herself added to the pitch, scheduled 4 hours before mine without telling me. I immediately went to Lisa's office. What's going on with the retail pitch? Why is Casey presenting? Lisa looked confused. Casey had come to me last week saying that you two had collaborated on the pitch and asked if they could present the strategic framework while you handled the implementation details. I thought it was a good idea to show the client our team approach. We haven't been collaborating. That's my pitch. I've been working on it for 2 months. Lisa frowned. Casey showed me her deck last week. It's very comprehensive. Are you saying she didn't work on it? I'm saying it's my work, my strategy, my research. Casey has been taking credit for my projects for months. Lisa looked uncomfortable. That's a serious accusation, Alex. Do you have proof? I did. I had emails with timestamps showing when I'd sent Casey ideas. I had Slack messages where I'd outlined strategies that Casey later presented as her own. I had original files with my name on them that predated Casey's versions. I had a paper trail going back months. Yes, I said, I have extensive documentation. Lisa sighed. This is not really the time for this. The pitch is tomorrow. Let's get through that and then we can address your concerns. But I knew it would happen. Casey would present my work, we'd land the client, and Casey would get all the credit. Again, and any complaint I made afterward would look like sour grapes. I made a decision I've been questioning ever since. I went to HR that afternoon. I applied a formal complaint against Casey for taking credit for my work and creating a hostile work environment. I bought printed copies of everything, emails, Slack messages, file metadata, side-by-side comparisons of my original work and Casey's presentations. I had documentation of about 8 separate instances over the last 6 months. HR representative Michelle took it very seriously. She said they need to investigate that both pitch meetings would be postponed until the investigation was complete. Casey found out that evening. I got a text at 7 p.m. What did you do? Then, I can't believe you went to HR. Over what? We're supposed to be friends. Then, you're really going to ruin my career because you're jealous? I didn't respond. What could I say? The next day, Casey was called into an HR meeting. So was Lisa, so was I, separately. I had to walk through everything, every instance of Casey taking credit, every piece of evidence, every conversation. It was exhausting and humiliating. I felt like I was on trial for being a bad friend. The investigation took 2 weeks. During that time, Casey and I didn't speak. The entire office knew something was going on. People were taking sides, and I don't even know the full story. The office dynamic is awful now. People are awkward around both of us. Casey and I can't be in the same room without tension. Our friend group is completely fractured. I've lost people I cared about. I keep asking myself, was protecting my career worth destroying my friendship? Was I right to report Casey, or did I prioritize my professional reputation over loyalty to someone I loved? My sister said I did the right thing, that Casey was using me and I had to protect myself. My therapist said I set appropriate boundaries, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm the asshole here. I chose my career over my best friend. I got Casey formally reprimanded, which will follow them professionally. I nuked a 4-year friendship instead of finding a way to fix it. Reddit, am I the asshole for reporting my friend to HR after they took credit for my work? Should I have handled this differently? Did I throw away something precious over office politics? I don't know. Maybe I should just let it go and find a new job instead of blowing everything up. Well, I've got to say these stories were very controversial. But anyways, that wraps up today's story time. Please remember this video is made without AI, so it took me hours. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Have a great rest of your day.